Eritrea صغفاي بلقي لنا مبسعاخ نحلو كم قدمنا
هتلو ኣይትሪእኒ ኢኻ ብዙሕ ስለዚ እዚ ቁርብ ኣሰንባዲ ይገብሮ ከም ተዓዛባይ ነቲ ከባቢ ክትዕዘቦ ከለኻ ኣብ ነፍሲ ወከፍ እዚ ጎነፃዊ ተርእዮ ዝተኻየደሉ ቦታታት ነቲ ኣብቲ ከባቢ ዝቕመጥ ወዲ ተዓዲ እስራኤላዊ ድዩ ጀርመናዊ ድዩ ኣሜሪካዊ ካናዳዊ ብዘይገድስ ኣሰንቢድዎ እዩ እንታይ ኢና ንርኢ ዘለና እንታይ ኢና ንኸውን ዘለና ከምኡ ብምግባር ኣብ ኩሉ ቦታታት አንጻር ስደተኛታት አንጻር ዓሌታዊ አንጻር ጸሊም ኣተሓሳስባታትን ስነሞጎትን ዘሰጉሙ ዝነበሩ ባእታታት ኣውንታዊ ኣበርክቶ ገይሩሎም ኢልናኩም እንዲና እዚኣቶም እዚ ኮነ ዓዶም ክጥረዝሎም ኣብ ካምፕ ክኣትውሎም ከምዚ ክኾንሎም ክመፁ የብሎምን ዝዓይነቱ ዘሰጉሙ ዝነበሩ
ሰላም ተኸታተልቲ ናይ ቻነል ከመይ ከኒኹም ከመይ ትኾኑ ሰናይ ክትኮኑ ናይ ወትሪ ምንዮተ እዩ መቸም ኣብዚ እዋን እዚ ሓደ ካብቲ ዘርከበ ዝዛረቦ ወይ ዝበፅሐ ሰብ እውን በቲ ሓደ እውን ሓቆም እዩ ትብሎ ኣብዚ ህልው ዘሎ ኩነታት ባእስን ዕግርግርን ኣብ መንጎ ኤርትራውያን ተራ ናይቶም ምሁራት ዜጋታት ብዙሓት ደኳትርን ሊቃውንትን ዘለዋ ሃገር እያ ብፍላይ ኣብ ደገ ተራ ናቶም እንታይ እዩ ኣብዚ ተመቓቒሉ ዘሎ ሕብረተሰብ ናይ ኤርትራውያን ኣብ ዳያስፖራ እንታይ ተራ ክፃወቱ ክእሉ ብኸመይ ነዚ ኩነታት ይርእይዎ እንታይ ናቶም ርእይቶ እንታይ ትዕዝብቲ ኣለዎም ዝብል ኣርእሲ ንብዙሓት ዘገድስ ወይ ካብ ብዙሓት ሰባት ዝሓስብዎን ኣብ ቻነለይ ድማ ብዙሕ ግዜ ኣብ ኮሜንት ዝፀሓፍን እዩ እምበር ሓደ ኣዝዩ ኣገዳሲ ኣዝዩ ርሱም ብርቱዕ ዝኾነ ክትዕ ብሓደ ቅዱስ ኤርትራዊ ዜጋ ሜሮን ሰመዳር ዝበሃል ተምሃራይ ናይ ዓብዪ ዩኒቨርሲቲ ናይ ዩሲ ቤርክሌይ ዝበሃል ዝነበረ ምስ ሓንቲ ፕሮፌሰር ናቱ ብምዃን ሓደ ዓቢ ዲቤት ኣብ መንጎ ዝተፈላለዩ ምሁራት ኤርትራውያን በቲ ዩኒቨርሲቲ ዝተማእኸለ እዩ ነይሩ ሓደ ኣገዳሲ ዛዕባ ነዊሕ እንድዩ ኣብ ሰቲት ኣለኩም ኣብቲ ቻነል ከሪአኩም እየ ሰቲት.ኦርግ ዝብል ግን ንሎሚ ኣገዳሲ ምስ ሕጂ ዘለናዮ ኩነታት ዝምልከት ክንርኢ ኢና ካልእ እውን ዝተፈላለየ ኩነታት ናርኣና ክንቅፅል ኢና ሌት ስታርት በዛ ካብ ፍርቂ ጅምር ዘለኹ ምክንያቱ እቲ ኢንትሮዳክሽን ገለገዲፈ ኣለኹ ከድኩም ብምሉእ ኣቦ ክትርእይዎ ምንታን ሌት ስታርት with this one now please like ግበሩ support ግበሩ ናትኩም ሓገዝ ኣገዳሲ እዩ let's go
Thank you to my friend Meron Samadar.
Zarab Zollo, Daniel Takhlayu, let's listen.
For organizing this event and for UC Berkeley and all these other esteemed institutions who are sponsoring this event for us. Thank you so much. And I also like to thank you, Dr. Jennifer Regan, for moderating this. And I also like to thank my fellow panelists for taking the time to do this. When I saw the title,
Daniel مجمري أنا كلهم نتعدل زخافته نتي ميرون كم نتا بروفيسور نت مودريت قبر زلا نتي يونيفرسيون بدحر بمزقان عجي جمرالو.
It's the title of the topic of what we are discussing. It's a divided diaspora in the future of Eritrea. Obviously, that's a very broad one. Talking about divided diaspora, which in itself sounds like as if there is a 50-50 divide, which is very, very not true. Then, of course, the future of Eritrea is a very, very broad subject. But obviously, we are here to discuss what's been happening in recent months and what we have seen in Eritrean festivals. And at the end of the day, it's not what's going on, the positive things that's going on in them. We are addressing the violence, the property damage, the arrests, the attack on police, the things that make news. And for someone who may not be too familiar with.
So انتهي بلا مجمرة تعرس انتهي زبل زلو divided diaspora and the future of Eritrea. انتهي زبل زلو تعرس نبعلو sensationally اتزقبر زلو بإرترا زيو بأسن عقرقرن كم زلو غير كامغراب السجنة يكون انتو كنتات تكن زاربلو زلنا ويا زينا زمو زلو تبأسن عقرقرن دا أمبر كل إرترا أبكم مسلا دي ساتف زلو أيقونة نزي بأسن عقرقرن جن headlines ويكا أرسنايت زينا يخون سلو زلو أبتو وشتاتينا جن كالنا قركن رغن خلينا بزعبا مسألة إرترا ممكن زاربينا بلالو نغتل
Eritrea or Eritrean politics for that matter. I'm sure this could be very confusing, especially if one glances at headlines and tidbits of news information. Oh, a bunch of immigrants from Eritrea are fighting each other and it's not clear and who is the good guy, who's the bad guy. People try to get the context from that, and unfortunately sometimes it's always like, oh, one side supports the dictator and the other one is pro-democracy, so there must be a good and a bad guy to the story. Obviously it's more complicated than that, like everything is.
سو انتهي بلالو مجمريا كل جزء نوح سلزبله حترت ربي لا ترجم لكم انتهي زبل زلو ابت زينا وي كابت منجتات حبريتات كتر خلغا ايرتراويان ديمقراسي زق على سون مس ديكتاتور زدقفون زباسولو زلو كنتاتيو زبل ارسي خاد مدمدم تاع عينتي خاطري ابت وشتن كوما يكونن كنتات زي نتي حصيرو صوم يكون كنتات كريز دلي كل جزء ليبل كوبز فتنيا كوما يكونن كم حدا اب اسرع عمت ابت دم بتقامن ابتقال سن فتحن زنبركو اكل كوين خري خلو خيبلالو نغات لجي دانيال ناينو عمتا تقاوماي زنبريو حجون ستيل ولا كوا ابت فيستيفالات تتساتفنا تمرقص خنغربكمي
but I'm here to shed light on like the rest of our panelists to share on some background story on why this is actually happening first of all and then why at this time and it's hard to do this in 5 minutes in 4 minutes but I will definitely try to do it let me start with a little background from who I am and as it was mentioned in the introduction my name is Daniel Zaklai and I'm an activist of course we have other professions that we do but we are here because we are all activists who would like to see some democratic change in our country having said this for the last 18 years I've been involved as a writer as an organizer I founded organizations I helped put together events and conferences and symposiums and I continue to lead an organization all in the effort to implement the Eritrean constitution so we can have rule of law in our country. That's
مجمريا حترابي لك نقرأكم كباك جراوند ناتي أنا دانيال تغلاي بحال مشم أكتيفيستي ويكا نلوت زك على السبي of course أبكال بروفيشن ناتي أبزو حاولتات كم كالس أبكال بروفيشن ونزنت السبي جن أبزو قداك نملس كلنا نوي حمتات استغالسكو زك علىسكو أخيباتاتن سميناراتن كونفرنساتن زنقدكو حركاتي نسون بصوتن زنقدو أنا وأنت ساتي فنيري سلزي ببزوح مدايت على مادما وماون ديمقراطية ونحجاب عدنا منقاس نوي استغالسكيه نابله نتنوي كنتات حجاب حرب 3 دقيقة يخبدني جن يفتنا له let's listen.
That's the gist of it. Now, as we do this, as we go into talk about change in our country, there has been so far 2 schools of thought basically, and what taught me in the last 18 years. One is those of us who say we can do this through non-violent means by encouraging the people of Eritrea or the change agents in Eritrea to make the transition from authoritarianism to democracy, to push for the implementation of the constitution within the country. And then there are those who say, no, we actually have to defeat we actually have to change the regime, even if it includes, working with outsiders to militarily invade the country. And this debate has been going on for many.
So, بأغلب بالكاتريون دهرون كاتخونتات كلتا عينت سنة حسابا لعبيز بلو قاليناتهم بالسلام أو من قدي نتكونتات بزي قونسي نتهزبي العائل كاب هذا مع الدمسيخة حقن قوامن ديمقراطية كسغرو لزغل عوش تعدي شجر إيرتراويان بسرح ويكا لوط بإيرتراويان بزمت زبل سنة حساب كاب قدم زنبريزي شجر إيرتراويان مفتح بإيرتراويان زبل مالتيو إزي نحسب بمن قد تهزب نكون اتكالي قلنا بحيلي كون زغل تعبير ترازلو بسلام من قد اختار عليه سلازي تغلنا زين مقبار دما مزخونه يكون حيلي حق زكا زغل نتي السلطان نتي سرعه تعبير ترازلو نمفراس حق زكا زغل مسؤول كنسرح نغلينا زبل اتحساسبا كلته وغن الله يبلالو نقتل نوع زبلت ياغن كحصره فتنالو
years now and finally in 2018 I think there a dynamic changed that because those who were counting on violent means or by, as they call it, any means necessary, those who were collaborating with the then in power TPLF regime in Ethiopia, they were counting on them, and then all of a sudden the revolution came in Ethiopia and it toppled them. And Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to the picture and entered a peace agreement with Eritrea, and that changed the dynamic. That still left the TPLF intact with Tigray. 2 years later, a war ignited, as we all know, and this contention between those of us who were seeking change from within peacefully and those who were looking forward.
كتشين عصرت شو تناب كم زكونتات كلنا نأبي أبسلتان ممسعنة الديناميكس ويكانت كونتات أزيك أيرو مغنياتو أتوم بقونتين بحيلن ويكبوتا درابوية عقمن زبلو زنبرو إثيوبيا ويكا TPLF أبز مرحل ويهو حتى أبز مرحلو زنبري نسومي مورغنايز قبرونيروم عبد التشين عصر شو متنجن كابسلتان تعاليو من مغالية سلوز خدو اتكونتات تقلال لك غير ترايو انتو خوني أما غالب بممسعون organized ኮይኖም ስለ ዝነበሩ ስቲል ንሳቶም ቶምሶም ዝደናገጹ መሊሶም ሶም ክሰርሑ ከም ዝፈተኑ ይራሎ ተኻለ ግን ኩነታት ተغيሩ ማለት እዩ ሽዑ ይብላሎ ፕሊዝ ላይ ግበሩ ነዋህያ አቅሊ ጌርኩም ስምዕዋ ብዙሕ ከተማሃሪኩም
to the TPLF or the Tigray Defense Force to invade Eritrea and bring that change that created a contention. At the end of the day, after the war started, those of us who say, even if we have to side with the government because it's our nation, because we have to be on the side of our defense forces, those of us who chose that part start working closely, even with the so-called government supporters, even though they were all fellow Eritreans after all. Then the war ended, and as you saw in this year, during the celebration of Independence Day, for Eritrea's Independence Day in May, everyone who was previously opposing and everyone who sided with Eritrea and its forces celebrated Independence Day, I think, in a very, very big way, including in Ethiopia, all over Europe, all over the world, pretty much. And I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people coming together. That's where this opposition to this festival came in, because they gave up on or any alternative to making a regime change using the TPLF. It was about, okay, now why don't we attack these festivals now?
So ኣብ 2020 ብዝተወልዐ ኩነታት እቲ ኩነታት ነቲ ዳይናሚክስ ቀይርዎ እቲ ኩነታት ኩናት ምስ ተጀመረ ኤርትራ ተሃሪማ ናብ ውግእ ምስ ኣተወት እቶም ገለ ተቃወምቲ ዝነበርና ጉዳይ ኤርትራ ናይ ኤርትራ ጥራይ ዝምልከት ንብል ዝነበርና ምስቲ ሰራዊት ምስቲ ህዝብና ምስቲ ሃገርና ኢና ክንከውን ምክንያቱ ውግእ ስለ ዝካየድ ዘሎ ኢልና እዚ ድማ ወላ ምስቶም ደገፍቲ እውን ይህም ይህን ክንብል ዘገድደና ኩነታት ናይ ሃገር ስለ ዝኾነ ይብላ ኣሎ እቶም ካልኦት ክፋል ናይ ተቃውሞ ግን ምስ ህወሓት ወጊኖም ይብላ ኣሎ ስለዚ እቲ ኩነታት ከም ዝረኣናዮ ድማ ኣብ 2022 መወዳእታ ብሰላም ክዛዘም ከሎ እቲ ኩናት ዳርጋ መብዛሕትኡ ከም ዝረዳዳሉ ኤርትራ ስዒሮም ከም ዝወፁን ህወሓት ድማ ከም ተሳዕሩን እዩ ስለዚ እቲ መዓልቲ ናጽነት ድሕሪኡ ኣብ 23 ዝመፀ ድማ ብፍሉይ ዓይነት ኣበዓላ ኣማይት ኣሽሓት ኤርትራውያን ኣብ ኩሉ ክፋል ኤውሮፓ ኣሜሪካ ኢቨን ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ ከብዕልዎ ተራእዮም እቶም ምስ ህወሓት ወጊኖም ዝነበሩ ግን ስለዝተሳዕሩ ነዚ ፌስቲቫላት ወይ ነዚ በዓላት ነዚ መዓልቲ ናጽነት ዘይነሃርሞን ዘይነጥቅዖን ዝብል ሓሳብ ከምፁ ተራእዩ ቅድሚኡ ዘይነበረ ሽዑ ክርአ ጀሚሩ ይብል ኣሎ ንቐፅል
As you have heard many times, they've been going on for, at least in the United States, for 49 years, and I'll speed up. But at the end of the day, there's a freedom of speech, freedom of assembly for everyone, no matter what, whether you are opposed to the government or are calling for regime change. It applies equally to all of us, including people like myself. We want democratic change, but we don't want violence. So that's so to those who are surprised to see somebody like me who is actually defending what we consider government support and festivals and so on. I hope this background that I just gave you makes more sense. But at the end of the day, what we are talking about is it okay to use violence to achieve some kind of political aim? The classic definition of that, and I'm sure all you scholars would agree, is if you use violence for the aim of some political aim, it's called terrorism. There is no ifs and buts about it.
So እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ እቲ ኩነታት ክንሪኦ ከለና ብሕትር ዝበለ ኣብ ዓዲ ዲሞክራሲ ዓዲ ፍትሒ ዓዲ ናጽነት ናይ ሓሳብን ናይ ዘረባን ዘለዎ ኩነታት ዝኾነ ሰብ ንዝመስሎ ብሕጋዊ መንገዲ በዓል ክገብር ይኽእል እዩ ነዚ ክትቃወም ምፍታን ድማ ሕጋዊ ይኮነን ብዝኾነ ሕጋዊ መንገዲ ክትፍትን ትኽእል ኢኻ ብሓይሊ ምግባር ግን ቅቡል ኣይኮነን ይብላ ኣሎ ኢቨን ነቶም ነዚ ንቃወም ድማ ብርቱዕ መጥቃዕቲ ከም ዝወርድ ኣትር ኣቢሉ ዝዛረባ ዘሎ ድማ ኣብ ዓዲ ሕግን ስርዓትን ከለና ሓሳብ ሓደ ሰብ ዝኾነ ኢቨንት ክገብር ከሎ ፖለቲካዊ ሓሳብናትካ ብሓሳብ ዘይኮነ ብሓይሊ ክትገብሮ ምፍታን ግብረ ሽበራ ይዝበሃል ኩልኻትኩም ምሁራት መጠን ኣብዚያ ክትሰማምዑ ትኽእሉ ምሳይ መስለኒ ፖለቲካዊ ሓሳብ ብሓሳብ ዘይኮነ ብሓይሊ ከተተግብሮ ምፍታን ግብረ ሽበራ ይደስምዕ ስለዚ ተዘጋጠመ ዝነበረ ድማ ካብ ግብረ ሽበራ ፈሊኻ ክርአ ዝኽእል ኣይኮነን ዝብል ሕፅር ዝበለ መደምደምታ ገይረሎ ናብ ካልኦት ክንሰግረና ሕጂ
when I got there, I went to the festivals in Oakland, California, in Seattle, Washington. 26 police officers in Germany got injured, about 30 of them in Israel, in Denmark, in Sweden, and Canada. So it's actually not only going after what they call regime supporters, and also people like me, for that matter, because they can't even differentiate us. What is worse now is they are going after law enforcement. So there's this policy.
ኩነታት ኣብ አንጻር ግለሰባት ተሳተፍቲ ደገፍቲ ጥራይ ዘይኮነስ አንጻር ፖሊስ እውን ዝነበረ ይብላ ኣሎ ቁሩብ ናይ ዳንኤል ሪቶ ነው ይሓላ ደንውሕ ስለ ዝዛረብ እዮም
dangerous, and those of you who know
there's a lot more to say about this question about there's a lot more to say about this question about why these protests are turning violent. We're going to come back to that question in a minute, but a couple of follow-up questions on these questions of this thought about the festival itself. I want to start, Herman, with you with this next question. Is just give us a little bit, and again, keep your comments to about 1 minute here. But just have been going on for a very long time.
Committed themselves to
تحتو بزعبات فيستيفال اسكو قرب مبرها بنا إلى طلا
actually arrange these festivals. I myself, for example, where I am here in Cape Town, I don't ask the embassy to organize an independence festival, for example. We do it here. We contribute money, and we call also other people from other countries. Also, it's not only Eritreans in these festivals. So it's an individual choice.
Thank you.
So ብዛዕባ ፌስቲቫል ክንዛረብ ተኮይና ይብላሉ ሄርሞን ካብ ሳውት አፍሪካ ኬፕ ታውን እዩ እንታይ ይብላሉ እዚ ፌስቲቫል ክንገብሮ ከለና ንኣብነት ካብ መንግስቲ ፍቃድ ወይ ካብ መንግስቲ ኦርጋናይዝ ጌርልና ይኮንና ንገብሮ ዘለና በዓልና ኢና ንገብሮ ዘለና ከድሓርካ ንሕና ጥራይ ዘይኮነስ ካልኦት ዜጋታት እውን ንዕድም ኢና ኣብቲ በዓል ምሳና ክሳተፉ እናበለ ይምልሳላ ኣሎ ንቐፅል ሕጂ it's going to be very interesting to debate ሕጂ ክጅምር እዩ ንመንግስቲ ወይ ከዓ ናብ መንግስቲ ዝፅግዕ ዝበለ ሓሳስባ ርኢና ኣለና ካብ ዳንኤልን ካብ ሄርሞን ሕጂ ድማ Kapti opposition side kapti answer kaptom delayed fit hadma kansamina. Let's listen.
Turn the question to you now with a slight addition to it, and that's you mentioned the festivals in Israel where you have asylum seekers both who oppose and support the government who attend these festivals, and I was wondering if you could expand on why Eritrea are attending festivals and what that means to them.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. In fact, if these are
ታሕቶ ካብ ኤርትራ ዝሃደሙ ሰባት ስለምንታይ ፌስቲቫል የብዕልሉ እንታይ ትርጉሙ ትብላላ ኒ ሽማ ዶክተር ሳባያ መስለኒ እቲ ቁርብ ትሒቱ ስለ ዘሎ እቲ ጽሑፍ ኣይንበብና ኣሎ ኣገን ክንሰማይና
in fact festivals, I think everybody should be welcome. The previous speaker, I forgot his name, was saying that this is for everybody, right, including other nationalities, not necessarily Eritreans, but this should be open for everybody. In fact, the fact of the matter is these festivals are not open for everybody. You have to be in line with the government of Eritrea and in agreement with the government policies and be supporting the government, whatever form or shape you can be expressing that support. One of it is by
So እንታይ ትብላላ መጀመርያ እዚ ፌስቲቫል እዚ ናይ ኩሎም ኤርትራውያን ተዝኸውን ነይሩ ንኩሎም ኤርትራውያን ክፉት ምኾነ ነይሩ ስለዚ ኩሎም ኤርትራውያን ኣይኮኑን ዝሳተፉ ኣብዚ ወይ ዝዕደሙ መንደኣ እቶም ንመንግስቲ ዝድግፉ ወይ ምስ ናይ መንግስቲ ሓሳብ ዝሰማምዑን ዝርዕሙን ጥራዮም ናብኡ ዝዕደሙ ስለዚ ሓደ ካብቲ ፍልይ ናይቲ ፌስቲቫል ንኩሉ ከም ዘይኮነ በዚ መብርህሎ ትብላላ
by attending those festivals. So it's the very fact that it's exclusively for the regime supporters makes it that this is not a cultural thing, because if it's culture, you not only want everybody within your country, but also others to share your culture and whatever uniqueness you might want to share with the rest of the world. So I think that's the problem. And then in fact, so the Eritrean community in Israel
ከምኡ ድማ እቲ ናይ ባህላዊ ፌስቲቫል እንተኮይኑ ንኤርትራውያን ጥራይ እውን ጥራይ ክኸውን ኣይግባኡን ካልኦት ዜጋታት እውን እቲ ፌስቲቫል ናትካ ንምርኣይ ካልኦት ዜጋታት እውን ክኾንዎ ይግባእ ኤርትራውያን ጥራይ በይኖም ዘብዕልዎ ክኸውን ኣማይ ተገበን ስለዚ ከምቲ ባህላዊ ዝብልዎ ከም ዘይኮነ እያ ፕሩፍ ክትገብር ትፍትን ዘላ ንቐፅል ፕሊስ ላይ ግበርዎ ሰፖርት ግበሩ
that that they have
ተማሃሩ ድማ እዚኦም ዓበይ ምሁራት ናይ ዓድና እዮም ካብኦም እውን ሪቶኦም ውሰዱ ተማሃሩ ግን ናትኩም መደምደምታ ክትገብሩ ትኽእሉ
been living sort of kind of managing their relationship, even though those who are there as refugees claiming protection from the very government that has been a reason for them persecuting them are now kind of almost literally armed with materials to attack the other group of similar Eritreans who are asylum seekers like them, but who have a defensible and a credible asylum protection because they cannot go back to Eritrea. But those who are supporting the government, they have a chance to return to Eritrea. Then that automatically disqualifies for having a credible asylum application. So that's what I was implying to, because it's going to create a problem. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu said that they're going to return all these Eritreans. But I think that the first step is that to look into each case and see who has real fear or credible fear of persecution in the country where they came from. So I think that's what I meant, but it would create for those who are supporting the government a serious problem for their asylum cases.
So በታ ሓደ እጂ ክትሪኦ ከላ እንታይ ትብላላ ሳባ ማለት እዩ እቲ ኩነታት ናይ ብሓቂ እቲ ፌስቲቫል ዝግበር ዘሎ እቶም ኣብኡ ዝሳተፉ ዘለዉ ነቲ ስርዓ ዝድግፉን ምስ ደው ዝብሉን ኣንጻር እቲ ዕቑባ ሂብዎም ዘሎ ዕቑባ ክረኽቡስ ካብቲ መንግስቲ ከም ዝሃድሙን እቲ መንግስቲ ስግኣት ከም ዝኾኖምን ናይ ሂወቶም ስግኣት ከም ዘለዎም ፈልዩ ሓቢሮም እዮም ዕቑባ ወሲዶም ዘለዉ ስለዚ እቲ ጠጠው ኢሎምሉ ዘለዉ ነቶም ብትክክል ዕቑባ ዝግብኦም ሰባት ንፍትሒ ዝቃለሱ ዘለዉ ንዓታቶም ኣብቲ ፌስቲቫል ክመፁ ከለዉ ሰላማዊ ሰልፊ ክገብሩ ከለዉ ብኣባትርን ብገለን ስለ ዝሃርምዎም ዘለዉ ብትክክል እዚ ሓደ ካብቲ ጉጉይ ወይ ከዓ ዘይቅንዑ እዩ ትብላላ ብምቕፃል እዚኦም ሰባት እዚኣቶም ዋላ እዚ ኩነታት ዝብሎ ዘለኹ ነቶም ደገፍቲ ቁጠባ እቲ ናይ ዕቑባ መሰሎም ክንፍገ ወይ ከዓ ብዳግም ክፍተሽ ክኽእል ኣለዎ ምክንያቱ ዕቁባ ኣው ሂብዎም ዘሎ ኩነታት ናብ ዓዶም ብትክክል ክምለሱ ዝኽእሉ ምስ መንግስቲ ክሰርሑ ምስ መንግስቲ ክንቀሳቀሱ ዝኽእሉ ተኮይኖም እንታይ እቲ ናይ ዕቁባ ጉዳይ እዚ ድማ ኣብ ቤንያሚን ኔታንያሁ ኣብ እስራኤል ፕራይም ሚኒስተር እስራኤል ማለት እዩ ከም ዝበሎ እቶም ደገፍቲ ንዓዶም ክምለሱ ይኽእሉ እዮም ዝበሎ ኣብ ካልእ እውን ነፍሲ ወከፍ ሰብ እቲ ደጋፊ ዘሎ ጉዳይ ናይ ዕቁባ መሰሉ ዳግማይ ክፍተሽ ዘለዎ ጉዳይ ኮይኑ እውን ይስምዓኒ ትብል ኣላ ንቐፅል
Thank you. Daniel or Jonathan, would either of you like to add anything to the question of who attends festivals?
Yes, I would. I would like to say that it would be imprecise to characterize Eritrean festivals as cultural events because it is very clear for everyone that Eritrean festivals have always been political since their inception. If we think about the 1980s when you had EPLF, even ELF festivals, these were festivals that were organized by these guerrilla freedom movements in the Eritrean fields. And these festivals were used to bring together Eritreans, of course, at the time to give support to the armed revolution. And these were sites where political speeches were given, where books were sold, where
so እንታይ ይብላሎ በመሰረቱ እቲ ፌስቲቫል ናይ ኤርትራ ዮናታን ይዝበሃል ቲንክ ዶክተር ዮናታን ይመስለኒ ዝዛረብ ዘሎ እንታይ ይብላሎ እቲ ፌስቲቫል ናይ ኤርትራ በመሰረቱ ባህላዊ ምባል ቅኑዕ ኣይኮነን ምክንያቱ ካብ ታሪክ እውን ተመሊስና ዋላ ኣብ ግዜ ቃልሲ ዝነበረ ፌስቲቫል ናይ ኤርትራ ነቶም ዝቃለሱ ዝነበሩ ኣብ ሰውራ ዝነበሩ ንዓታቶም ንምድጋፍ ነይሩ ስለዚ ፖለቲካዊ መሰረት ካብ ቀደም ዝነበረ እዩ ስለዚ እዚ ባህላዊ ዝብል ካብቲ ኣብ መጻጹ ታሪካዊ እውን ቅኑዕ ኣይኮነን ፖለቲካዊ ኩነታት ይብላሉ
that are commissioned and sponsored by the cultural affairs of the ruling party, the PFDJ, and the Eritrean Army Defense Propaganda Unit, right? So no other singers or cultural performers have the ability to come to the United States or to Europe and organize these types of events on their own. So
እንታይ ይብላሎ በመቀጠል እውን እንተሪናዮ እቶም ኣብቲ ፌስቲቫል ዝመፁ ደረፍትን ካልኦት ስነ ጥበበኛታትን በመንገዲ ናይ ማሕበራዊ ጉዳያትን ጎስጓስን ገለን ዝበሃል ናይ ህግደፍን ከምኡውን በቲ ሚኒስትር ምክልኻል ዘለዉ ሰባት እዮም እምበር ናፃ ዝኾኑ ደረፍትን ስነ ጥበበኛታትን ካብ ኤውሮፓን ካብ ኣሜሪካ መፅኦም ኣይኮኑ ዝመፁ ካብ ኤርትራ በመንገዲ መንግስቲ ዝመፁ ደረፍቲ እዮም ዝመፁ ስለዚ እዚ ናይ ባህላዊ ዘይኮነስ ፖለቲካዊ እዩ ዝብል ዘሎ
anyone going to attend these festivals, yes, there is music, yes, there is dancing, but a large part of it is going to be propaganda that glorifies the state of affairs in Eritrea and propaganda that denies and ridicules the suffering of the Eritrean people and ridicules Eritrean democracy proponents like ourselves who persistently have been calling for democracy and justice in Eritrea.
So እንታይ ይብላሎ ብሓፈሻ እወ ሳዕስዒትን ካልእ ነገራትን ኣሎ ግን ኣብ ጎኑ ጎኑ ዓበይቲ ሰሚናራት ብዛዕባ እቲ ናይ መንግስቲ ዘሎ ኣጀንዳታት ወይ ከዓ ስራሓት ፕሮፓጋንዳ መዘርግሒ ከምኡውን ብኩሉ ስነ ጥበባዊ መንገዲ ጌርካ ነቲ ዘሎ ኣብ ኤርትራ ዘሎ ፀገማት ናይ ዲሞክራሲ ናይ ፍትሒ ናይ እሱራትን ናይ ገለን ንዑ ሸፊንካ ነቶም ንፍትሒ ንቃለስ ዘለና ድማ ንዓና ንምውራድን ንምቁሻሽን ዳእምበር ብዙሕ ዝስራሓሉ እዩ ስለዚ ባህላዊ ጥራይ ክትብሎ ኣይትኽእልኒ ኢኻ ንምባል እዩ ዝግሃታ ዘሎ ኣይ ቲንክ እጃቡ ኢና ፀኒሕና ቁርብ ኣብቲ ናይ ብዛዕባ ዘሎ ኩነታት ክትሓቶም እያ ሕጂ
Thank you. Daniel, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I do have to add. And out of this about 3, 4, 5,000 people that I saw, I can or ignore or than I even deserve, that I even try to express or welcome them than I even deserve, that I even thought, because what people want is they're not afraid of this different views. So to demonstrate that, to make my story short for you, because it's better to show than tell, what I did then is I started live streaming from the festival itself, just to show people what people are doing, what the children are doing, what people are dancing for, the number of people, the kind of things, the festivity, and of course a lot of people are not even
so እንታይ ይብላሉ ኣብቲ ፌስቲቫል ከምቲ ዝበሃል ዘሎ ዘይኮነ እቲ ኩነታት ክፉት ከም ዝኾነ ንኩሉ ነዚ ንምፕሩቭ ንምግባር ድማ ወላ ካብቲ ውሽጢ እውን ላይቭ ስትሪም ይገብር ነይረ ሰባት ንኽርዩ እንታይ ከም ዝግበር ቆልዑ እንታይ ይገብሩ ዓበይቲ እንታይ ይገብሩ መንእሰያት እንታይ ይገብሩ ንምርኣይ ስለዚ ክፉት እዩ ነይሩ ንዓይ እውን ከም ተቃዋሚ ዝነበርኩ ንመጀመርያ ተሳተፍኩ እውን ክፉት እዩ ነይሩ ክሳብ ክንዱ እውን ክፉት ኣይመስለኒ ነይሩ ስለዚ ከምቲ ዝበሃል ኣይኮነን እናበለ ነቲ ክልቲኦም ዮናታንን ሳባን ዝብልዎ እዩ አንጻሩ ዛረብ ዘሎ ብዛዕባ እቲ ፌስቲቫል
happy to see that, but those
ተኸፅል እጅ ብዛዕባ እቲ ባእስያ ክትከውን
videos were viewed by I would say hundreds of thousands of views since May, and that's the reality. Now, one may agree or may disagree about going. I respect that. But when that same festival in Seattle was, after we went to bed, was actually attacked, and thankfully there was enough security to prevent further damage. But the tents were destroyed, everything that they could find. And if they could find somebody who attended the festival, they would have smashed them with metal bars. They would have burned the tents if they could. All sorts of violence that we saw in Sweden, in Israel, and other places. So that's what's happening. At the end of the day, do we have the right to express ourselves, or do we not? That's the gist of it.
سنتاي بلالو جن كابز وتاي دما اتي بتوم سلف زغبر زلو وي تقامت بتي زغبر زلو عغرغر اب سياتل كم زرانا يو አጋጣሚ ዳሰባይ ነበረ ነበር ኣብ ካልእ ግርጭቱን ክኸይዝ ዝኽእል ዝነበረ ተንዳታት ምቅፃል መብልሻውን ዝከኣል ተገይሩ እዚ ድማ ንዝረኸቦ ሰቡን ክሃስዩ ይኽእሉ ነይሮም እዮም እዚ ተመሊስካ እንተሪኻዮ ሕጂ እቲ ሕቶ እታ ቀንዲ ሕቶ መሰል ኣለና ዶ እቲ ሕጊ ዘፍቅዶ ነገር ንክንገብር መሰል ኣለና ዶ የብልናን እዩ ትሕቶ ስለዚ ነቲ መሰል ናይ ሰብ ዲኻ ክትዓፁ ትፍትን ዘለኻ ወላ ኣይኮንካን እዩ ስለዚ መሰል ክሳብ ዘሎ ኣብ ተዓዲ ሕጊ ንመሰልና ክዓብዝ ዝፍትን ሓይሊ ኢና ንርኢ ዘለና እዩ ዝብል ዘሎ ሕጂ እታ ትቕፅላ ሕቶ ብዛዕባ እዚኣ ትከውን
Thank you for all your answers. So I think we can see that we have a lot of different perspectives on what the festivals themselves actually are. And I suspect that there will be a lot of different perspectives about the next question I want to ask. The question of violence. And so there's a question of protest, which I think everyone's laid out the position of protest, why protests need to happen, why protests are happening. And what the festivals are, which there's some disagreement about. But there's a question about violence and why is disruption turning violent at these and leading to these incidents. So I'd like to turn this question to all of you. Why are these incidents, protests that are intended to be disruptive, turning violent? What impact does violence have on the community specifically? And what's the significance of this violence both for the diaspora and inside Eritrea? And a final question, why these have happened in several locations around the world. So why are people continuing to attend both festivals and protests knowing that these seem to be likely to turn violent?
So تحت نوحد بلاتي مجمريا سلامتاي زي ዕግርግር ززقاتم زلو تبلو مخنياتو ابزح بتاتات اغاطي ملو سلازي ዕግርግር كم زلو باسخم زلو نافلت سلامتاي سب نا فيستيفال يخيدالو سلامتاي كاتم تقامو زغبر زلو خاي يخدلو كاب حدا بوتا ناب حدا بوتا خيد كلو انتاي كغاطم كم زغل كلتيوم وغنات يفلطلو سلازي سلامنتاي يخدلو نمنتاي علامه يزبل نوحتيا I think كلهم تنكف قبلها يمكن كلها غبراي كلني اسغر قبلها
And you can raise your hands and I'll take people in any order that they'd like to offer their thoughts. Yeah, Daniel.
Oh, sure, sorry, to get ahead of you guys. Why are they turning violent? The question is actually, it's not they're turning violent, it's premeditated violence. Literally, it's in the plan, it's in the playbook. Plan A, do this legally. Plan B, let's go violent. Now, Plan B says that if we can't legally...
سلامتاي قبروا له يكون أنت حتى سلامتاي قناص عقاتم على يكون نزي هند بتزقاتم زلوا زي يكون already تبلان نتع بأسن مقباري الكازخية ديو premeditated بلا قدم حسيب كان تدالي خان هنديس كالون زمت أزلوا كنا تاتمبر أو زقاتم زلوا يكون سلازي تبلان وان تقدم أي بلاناتهم نتفسيبال لخي كاد بحقه من قدم الكلاسيو السوس لزي كال مثلا سلوز هون تتوقبلو سلزي كله كبلان بي نتبعسي نتفسيبال وينتبعال ببعسي تتوقع طبوليلكا كل جينا حتيق كازم زلوا ده أمبر أبو سلام وصل فينا قبر كازقاتهم زلوا بعسي كونن يزبل زلوا دانيل
shut them and or force the city or the city council or somebody to take and hurling insults and all that was back and forth. To me, it's part of expression anyway. Everybody has freedom to even say an insult if they want to, but that is where what I call violence by protest comes in. Now, it's fair to ask, why would people go? Because by design, it's like people know that if part of their plan is we will go there, we will intimidate you, we will stop you. That's the exact very reason why people participate. No, we will not be intimidated. We will never kneel down because this is part of a design to not only.
So زي تيوم تقام تجبروا خن بالكلنا توم دقفت خسلم تايب عقرقرن عباسن زلو كقاطم عبزخيل يخدلو نزبل دما بتخكل أتي تجبر زلو سلمى سلفين قالن أنت مزيهم كنا هرمكم هنا عقرقر كقاطم يخمسة كقاطم يسلزي نمفرها نمر عادن فريهم نخي جبروا سلزخانة التزبير ترادما بتخكل كابهم عين فرينا عين بركخنينا بسونكم فيستيفالنا مع تناسنتنا مبعال أيكن قطفونينا زبل دما نحن كمدما نتنا تجبو سلز فلت نتي تاريخو نتنا تنو سلز قدسو بزنا كم رعدين شبران عين فرهنا بمباليو زخيد زلو دما يبلالو.
Only after protest dictatorship in Eritrea, but it's to go after Eritreanness or what we call Eritreanism or Eritreanness. They are against hoisting the flag. They are against singing the national anthem. They are against any patriotic songs that actually, the reason we
These festivals, I think I personally
especially in
እንታይ ብላ ኣሎ እቲ ዕላማ ድማ እዚ ነቲ ኣብ ኤርትራ ዘሎ ዲክታተር ምስ እውን ዘተሓሓዝ የብሉን እዚ ኣንጻር ኤርትራውነት ኣንጻር እታ ባንዴራ ኣንጻር እቲ ኩሉ ታሪክን እቲ ህዝብን ሰውራዊ ደርፍታትን ኩሉ ዘቕንዕዳ እምበር ምስቲ ናፅነቱን ዘተሓሓዝ የብሉን ዳስዋይ ድማ እቶም ህዝቢ ነዚ ዓይነት ነገራት ፈሪሆም ካብ ታሪኮምን ኩነታቶም ክተርፉ ስለ ዘይክእሉ ክኸዱ እዮም ይብላ ኣሎ ንቐፅል ናብ ሳባ ክትከይድ ሕጂ
Sweden after these tents were burned and there was even a helicopter and fire engines and so on. 3 hours later, I don't know, about 10,000 people showed up to say, hell no, our festival will go on. That's what's happening.
ኣብ ስዊድን ተሪእና እውን ድሕርቲ ብዙሕ ዕግርግርን ባእስን ወላ እኳ ሄሊኮፕተራትን ዓቢ ናይ ፀጥታ ናይ ፖሊስን ኣብ ዘጋጥመሉ ንፅባሒቱ 10,000 ዝኾኑ ኤርትራውያን ኖ ብከምዚ ከተፈራሩና እሞ ኣይትሕሰቦ ብምባል ኣሽሓት ህዝቢ ናብቲ ፌስቲቫል ክሳተፍ ርኢና ይብላ ኣሎ
Thank you. Saba.
Well, there are so many things that we need to correct here. And these festivals, I think I personally try to lay out what they are. They are nothing cultural. These are party rallies that are being organized by the ruling party in Eritrea to promote its propaganda, to promote its message, to divide and antagonize and polarize the Eritrean diaspora that has been living peacefully, managing their relationship in spite of their political or differences. But this time around, the regime is actually, to the question why these festivals are happening, they wanted to continue. They wanted to continue the divide. They wanted to continue to increase the polarization among the people.
So እንታይ ትብል ኣላ ቀዳማይ ነገር ከም ተቐዲመ ዝብሎ ፅናሕኮ እዚ ፌስቲቫላት ምስ ባህሊ ዘተሓሓዙ የብሉን እዚ ናይ ፓርቲ ናይ ፒኤፍዲጄ ናይ ህግደፍ ናይቲ መንግስቲ ፕሮፓጋንዳ ንምዝርጋሕ ዝጥቀሙሉ ኣብ መንጎ ኤርትራውያን ኣብ ደገ ዘሎ ባእስን ፍልልይን ንምእታው ነቲ ብሰላምን ብፍቅርን ዝነበረ ወላ ፖለቲካዊ ፍልልይ ከሎ ብሰላምን ብፍቅርን ዝነበረ ናብ ባእስን ዕግርግርን ንምእታው ዝገብርዎ ምዃኑ ኣብዚ ሕጂ እዋን ድማ ብፍሉይ ነቲ ኩነታት ሓዊ ንምእታው ንባእስን ዕግርግርን ዝገብርዎ ዘለዉ ኩነታት እያ ትብል ዘላ ማለት እዩ It's really I think ቁሩብ ካብቲ ካብ ኩንነት ርሕቕ ዝበለ ኮይኑ ይስማዓኒ ምክንያቱ ቀደም ዝገብርዎ ዝነበሩ ዘይገብርዎ ዝነበሩ ሎሚ ክገብርዎ ዝጀመሩ ዘሎ ይመስለና ናብቲ ፌስቲቫላት
peaceful, hardworking Eritrean diaspora that has lived in many years in these different countries that they are now engaging in this confrontational ways. So exactly the point that I'm trying to make in my first response, that the source of these violent actions and the result of all these interactions that ended up in violence are coming from the regime and its supporter side. So the Eritreans that gather to thinking that they're there to celebrate festivals are there knowingly and unknowingly to promote the regime's propaganda of war, hate speech, and antagonizing the Eritrean diaspora that has lived peacefully for the most part of their exile, right? So I think we have to distinguish that. So I think that even the language that has been used in this panel to othering other Eritreans that have a different opinion from the government as unpatriotic, as an Eritreans, is actually what is being promoted by the regime itself. So I think this is the things that we have to identify. That this
እንታይ ትብል ኣላ ብሓፈሻ ክንሪኦ ከለና እቲ ምንጪ ወይ ከዓ መበገሲ ናይ ዝኩሉ ባእሲ እቲ መንግስቲ ወይ ከዓ እቲ ስርዓት ዝገብሮ ዘሎ ንሱን ደገፍቱን ዝገብርዎ ዘሎ ፌስቲቫል ንሱ እዩ ትጠንቂ ናይ ዝኩሉ ዝኸውን ዘሎ እዚ ድማ ነቲ ንብዙሕ ዓመታት ኣብ ስደት ብሰላም ዝነበረ ህዝቢ ዘባእስዎ ዘለዎ እዩ ኢንፋክት ኣብዚ ብንጹር ኣይተዛረብናላ ዳንኤል ዝብሎ ዘሎ ነቲ መንግስቲ ዘይድግፍ ወይ ኣብቲ ፌስቲቫል ዘይሳተፍ ወይ እቲ ኩነታት ዘይድግፍ ዘይኤርትራውን ዘይ ጅግናን ጌርካ ምቁፃር ወይ ከዓ ፈሊኻ ምርኣይ እዚ ሓደ ካብቲ እውን መበገሲ ነዚ ዓይነት ኣተሓሳስባን ከይድን ነዚ ዓይነት ስነ ሓሳብን እዩ ድማ እቲ ፌስቲቫል እቲ መንግስቲ ብመንገዲ ፌስቲቫላት ገይሩ ብደገፍቲ ገይሩ ዝጉስጉስ ነዚ ድማ ኢና እቲ ተቃውሞን ባእስን ዘጋጥም ዘሎ ካ ብሰንኪ እዚ ግን እቲ ጠንቂ እቲ መንግስቲ እቲ ፌስቲቫል ዝገብር ዘሎ ንሱ እዩ እቲ ጠንቂ እያ ትብል ዘላ ብሕፅር ዝበለ
are not events that are organized by any individual Eritrean diaspora members. No, this is actually organized by the embassies and consulates that are throwing these so-called festivals, which I call them party rallies, PFDJ party rallies. And of course, people would want to come together and talk in Tigrinya or other languages they might be talking when they come together, So they need that fellowship, but when they come there, there's no space for a difference of opinion. You have to be molded in that thinking. This is what you're going to be doing. This is what you're going to be talking about. This is what you're going to be, you dancing to the tune of what space. And I would like to see the other Eritrean diaspora who are supporting the Eritrean regime to ask the question, if they're really worried about the violence that's happening on the streets of Europe or North America, there are our independent journalists that has been in dungeons 22 years and counting by the Eritrean, the very region that now we're seeing some of our diaspora members are supporting. Members of the high political leaders of the country, 11 of them. We don't know where these people are, whether alive or dead.
So እንታይ ትብል ኣላ ብካል መንገዲ ድማ እቲ ኣብቲ ፓርቲ እቲ ባህላዊ ዝበሃል ዘሎ ፌስቲቫል በተደጋጋሚ ባህላዊ ኣይኮነን እዚ ፖለቲካዊ ናብኡ ክትሳተፍቲ ኮንካ ብትክክል በቲ ናይ ህግደፍ ኣተሓሳስባ ናይ መንግስቲ ኣተሓሳስባ እምበር ናትካ ሓሳብ ከተሳልጥ ወይ ከዓ ናፃ ዝኾነ ሓሳባት ትገልፀሉ ፌስቲቫል ከም ዘይኮነ ንፁር ክኸውን ይግባእ ብምቕፃል ድማ እቶም ኣብ ፌስቲቫል ዝኸዱ ስለምንታይ ጎነፅ ግበር ኣሎ ስለምንታይ ዕግርግር ግበር ኣሎ ንውሕስነትና ሰላም ኣይኮነን ዝብሉ እንተኮይኖም እቲ ንሳቶም ዝድግፍዎ ዘለዎ መንግስቲ ይኹን ስርዓት ንሱ ንባዕሉ ኣብ ኤርትራ ንጋዜጠኛታትን ነቶም ዓበይቲ ፖለቲከኛታት ተቃወምቲ ዝነበሩ ኣበይ እትዎም ኣሎ ክሳብ ሕጂ ንዕስራታት ዓመታት ኣብ ምንታይ ኣስፊሮም ኣሎ ብዛዕባ እዚኦም እዮም ክሓቱ ዝግቦም ዛዕባ ነፍሶም ዘይኮነ ብመሰረቱ እቲ ንሶም ዝድግፍዎ ዘሎ ስርዓት ወይ መንግስቲ ዝገብሮ ዘሎ ንዕዑ ንባዕሎም ነዚ እንታይ ይገብር ኣሎ ኢሎም ክሓቱ ይግባእ ትብል ኣላ
So we're talking about violence. Let's talk about the violence that the regime has been putting our people under 22 years ago and before that, and as we speak right now. How many people are under in the dungeons of the PFDJ detention centers without no due process of law, without seeing any court of justice, without
very political. And in regards to the question about why people continue to go to these events, of course, there are a lot of Eritreans who, despite being victims of this very regime themselves, continue to support it, whether it's out of fear, whether it's out of survival guilt or other personal reason. I cannot, in my right mind, justify and try to pretend to be knowledgeable of why someone would continue to be a supporter and enforcer of the very system that has caused them to flee their homes and their livelihoods and seek refuge elsewhere.
So እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ መጀመርያ እቲ ኩነታት ከም ትብሎ ፀንሐት ፌስቲቫል ናይ ፖለቲካ እምበር ናይ ባህሊ ከም ዘይኮነ ብምቕፃል እቲኦም ናብቲ ፌስቲቫል ሳተፉ ዘሎ ወይ ነቲ መንግስትን ስርዓትን ደጊፎም ናብቲ ፌስቲቫል ዝመፁ ዘለዉ ስለምንታይ ከምኡ ዝገብሩ ዘሎ ብርክዕ ክርዳእኒ ይክእልኒ ምክንያቱ ነቲ ኩሉ ንክስደት ሽግርካ ኩሉ ኮይንካ ምንጭ መበገሲ ሽግርካ ኮይንካ ክስደት ዝገበረካሲ በናይ እንታይ እዩ ናብኡ ዘሳትፎም ብሓንጎለይ ብናተይ ርዲት ክገልፆ ይክእልኒ ምናልባት ፍርድ ኢኻ ክትብሎ ወይስ ገለ ምልክት ናይ ተዓሳዲ ወይስ ዝኾነ ኣነ በዛ ኣእምሮይ ክበፅሖ ይክእልኒ ስለምንታይ ከም ዝድግፎ ይብል ኣሎ
other panelist has contributed in clarifying my point by talking about some of the seminars that took place in the Seattle festival when he was talking about how there were government and states authorities. He was talking about governors giving speeches and giving seminars in those events. If that is not called state-sponsored and political, I don't know what would be. So these festivals, as I am trying to make clear, are essentially spaces where power of the Eritrean government is being contested, right? So for many Eritreans, they have been used for so many years to be manipulated, to be controlled, to be bullied and controlled by the long arms of the state through these embassies, through these consulates, through these community organizations that are not actually community organizations, but essentially associations that are run and controlled by the regime, as Saba has mentioned, including religious church associations.
እንታይ ብላ ኣሎ ብትክክል እጅ እውን ነቲ ሓንቲ ኣብዚኣ ኩልኩም ክትርዳእኩም ዘለዋ ፕሊስ ላይ ግበሩ ሰፖርት ግበሩ ሓንቲ ክሳብ ሕጂ ዝዓዘብኩማ እንተለኹም ወይ ከዓ እንተዘይተዓዚብኩማ ክነግረኩም እቶም ንኣብነት ዶክተር ሳባን ዶክተር ዮናታን ዝዛረቡ ዘለዉ ንዳንኤል ኢሎም ብሽሙ ክረቕሖ ይክእሉን እዮም ዘለዉ እቲ ፅልኢ እቲ ዘይምርዳእ ኣብ መንጎ እዚኦም ዓበይቲ ምሁራት ዝበሃሉ እውን ይርአ ኣሎ ናይ ብሓቂ ድማ ዝሕዝን እቲ ኣካል ሓደ ካብዚኦም ኣብ ዝፀንሑ ይብሉ እሳ እውን እንተኾነት ሽማ ይሓስክዎን this is completely ብናተይ ርዲት ክሪኦ ከለኹ ዘሕዝን ክፋል እዩ ናይ ፖለቲካ ፍልልይ ኣለዎም እዞም ሰባት እዚኣቶም ምሁራት ደረጃ ምሁራት ናይ ኤርትራ ድማ እዮም ዝበሃሉ ዓበይቲ ኣሰቦት እውን ኣይኮኑን ኣብ ማእከላይ ዕድመ ዘለዉ መንእሰያት እዮም ብሱላት እዮም ቆልዑ ይኮኑን ናእሽቱ ይኮኑን ግን ከም ኢንተሌክቹዋልስ ከም ምሁራት ኣካላት እሞ ነቲ ሕብረተሰብ ኣብ ባእስን ዕግርግርን ዘሎ ረፕረዘንት ገይሮም ዲስካሽን ክገብሩ ከለዉ እንተሓመቐሲ ከምዚ ዳንኤል ከብለ ሲቪል ዝኾነ ወይ ካብ ምዕብል ዝበለ ርእቶ ኣንጻርካ ንዘሎ ሽምና ረቑሕካ ክብረት ንምርኣይ ንኻልኦት እንታይ ዓይነት ኣብነት ኢኻ ትገድፈሎም ዘለኻ ልክዕ ነቶም ንኣሹ ዝገብርዎ ዘሎ ንምድርባይን ባእስን ንዑምፂ ካብዚ ድማ ሽሙ ከይረቋሕካ ዝብሎ ፀንሐ ከም ዝብሎ ፀንሐ እናበልካ ምዝርራብ ፅቡቅ ኮይነ የተሰማዓትን ብምቕፃል እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ እቲ መንግስቲ ብመንግስቲ ስፖንሰርድ ኣይኮነን ዝብሎ ዘሎ ፌስቲቫላት ናይ መንግስቲ ኣካላት ወይ ካብ መራሕትን ኣመሓደርቲ መፅኦም ዝዛረቡ እንተኮይኖም ካብዚ ንላዕሊ መረጋገፂ ክህልዎ ኣይክእልን እቲ ፌስቲቫል ናይ መንግስቲ ድያ ኣይኮነን ዝብል ስለዚ እናበለ ከምኡ ድማ እቲ ፌስቲቫላት ይኹን እቲ ኤምባሲ ከምኡ ቆንስላቱ ነቲ ህዝቢ ኣብ ስደ ዘሎ እናፈራርህን ኣብ ራዕዲ እትዩን ዝነበረ ከም ምዃኑ መጠን ስለዚ እዚ ከምዚ ባህላዊ ወይ ናፃ ንኩሉ ዘሳትፍ እዩ ክትብሎ ኣይትኽእልኒ ኢኻ ዝብል ዘሎ ንቐፅል ነዋሕ ስለ ዝኾነ ገለገለ ይገድፎ ኣለኹ ታነ ዝገደፍክዎ ኣብ ኮሜንት ወይ ኣብ ቻት ክትገድፍዎ ትኽእሉ ኢኹም ንካልኦት ንክሕግዝ ኣነ ግን ብሕፅር ዝበለ ነቲ ዝዓበየ ክፋል ክንሰምዕ ኢለ
and organizations. And the reason why these events are turning political is because the Brigade Hamadu and other justice-seeking Eritreans are trying to confront the regime. For many years, for 20 plus years, they have tried to do so by peaceful means, by non-violent means. Until very recently, Eritreans would go to sites of festivals and just, chant down, down, dictator, and try to express their dissent and try to engage the regime and the supporters through non-violent means. But what has that contributed? 20 years, nothing resulted except the Eritrean opposition being ridiculed and made fun of. That did not contribute into anything. So I am kind of confused when I hear in this panel about why things are turning violent and why we should not stick to non-violent, peaceful means when we all have seen for so many years that this have not contributed into anything. Again,
so እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ ከምኡ ድማ ሰላምታይ ዞም ሕጂ ዘሎ ዝኽየድ ዘሎ ሰላማ ሰልፊ ወይ ከዓ ናይ ተቃዋምቲ ናብ ባእስን ዕግርግርን ኣትዩ ንዝብል ንዝሓለፈ 20 ዓመታት ብሰላማዊ መንገዲ ኣብቲ ፌስቲቫል ዝካየደሉ ብምኻድ ዳውን እናተባህለ ንነዊሕ ዓመታት ተዘሪቡ እዩ እቲ ውፅኢት ዝኾነ ይኹን ውፅኢት ከምፅእ ድማ ኣይረኣናዮም ስለዚ ኣነ ይርዳእንን እዩ ስለምንታይ ሕጂ ስለምንታይ ጎነፅ ዝጥቀምሉ ስለምንታይ ሰላማዊ ቃልሲ ዘይገብሩ ዝበሃል ዘረባሲ ክርዳእና ኣይክእልኒ ምክንያቱ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ ንነዊሕ ዓመታት ተጠቒምናሉ መዋረዲናን መፅረፊናን ክንፅረፍን ክንዋረድን እምበር ዝኾነ ይኹን ለውጢ ከምፃልና እውን ኣይረኣና እናበለ ኣትሪሩ ይዛረብ ኣሎ ዮናታን ማለት እዩ
And what I would like to say is the goal, and this is from my own reading, the goal and the target of this Brigade Hamadu incidents and protests are the festivals. They are not the people who are attending the festival, right? They are not targeting the women, the men, whoever is going to the festivals. The key goal is boycotting those festivals by petitioning to courts, to judges, to local authorities, trying to shut them down. If that doesn't work, then this transnational organization is moving towards the actual blocking and controlling of these spaces. So it is a struggle for controlling of these spaces where transnational, the event in Seattle, which I witnessed in person. And I would also like to correct my fellow panelists that there weren't only 60 people there. And I also felt like the number given about the number of regime supporting Eritreans in the event given as 4,000 sounds a bit exaggerated. The number
እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ ብምቕፃል እቲ ጎነፅ ዝጥቀሙ ዘለዉ እቶም ብርጌድ ንሓመዱ ዝሳተፉ ዘሎ መንእሰያት ንሰብ ክሃርሙ ወይ ንሰብ ክጎዱ ኣይኮነን ዕላማው እንታይ ደኣ ብዝተፈላለየ መንገዲ ነቲ ፌስቲቫል ንኸይካየድ ጠጠው ንምባል እዩ እዚ ድማ ብፔቲሽን ብምግባር ብሕጋዊ መንገዲ ኣብ ምምሕዳርን ኣብ ኮርትን ወይ ካብቲ ቤት ፍርድን ከይድካ ብምውጋት ንሱ እንተዘይሰሊጡ ድማ እቲ ፌስቲቫል ዘይካየደሉ መንገዲ ወይ ጠጠው ዝብለሉ መንገዲ ብኩሉ ይኹን መንገዲ ንምፍጣር እምበር ሰብ ንምሕራምን ሰባት ወይ ከዓ ንብረት ንምዕናውን ኣይኮነን እቲ ዕላማ ከምኡ እውን እቲ ዳንኤል ዝበሎ ሽሞም ክጠቃቀሱ ዘይምፍታኖም ብኩሉ ወገን ብጣዕሚ ዘሕዝን እዩ ዳንኤል ዝብሎ ፀንሐ ኣብቲ ሲያትል ዝተሳተፉ ተቃዋምቲ ሱሳ ዝኾኑ እዮም ዝበሎ እውን ብኣካል ስለተሳተፍክዎ ጌጋ እዩ ካብ ሓቂ ዝረሓቐ እዩ ከምኡ እውን ኣብቲ ፌስቲቫል ተሳተፉ ኤርትራውያን 4,000 ዝኾኑ ዝበሎ እውን ብዓብዩ ዝተጋነነ ቁፅሪ ኮይኑ ይስምዓኒ ይብላ ኣሎ
number I heard was quite lower than that, around 2,000. And if you were to think about the number of Eritreans living just in the Seattle area, for example, with over 20,000 Eritreans, and you have this big state-sponsored event, and you only have 2,000, 3,000 Eritreans in that event, that also states that not every Eritrean is in wide support and in all of these celebrations. And a lot of that has to do with the very political nature of these events. And people who insist on going to these events are people who are trying to prove their loyalty to the regime, because these festivals are litmus papers, right? They are litmus tests of your loyalty to the regime. So if you want to prove your loyalty, you would dare to go to this event.
So the conversation ab settit.org كم كتسمعوا تقولين وين تدليون كاله كفال غيرنا تتعرف خمسة عليكم يغلي كاينو حقكم اتعرس بتدغاغامي فيستيفال ባህላዊ ኣይኮነን ኣብ ሲያትል ኤሪያ ጥራይ ከባቢ 10,000 ሰብ ዝቕመጥ ኣሎ ብውሕዱ ካብኣቶም 2-3,000 መፅኦም ማለት ክሳብ ክንደይ እቲ ህዝቢ ናብዚ ፖለቲካዊ ብምዃኑ ክሳተፍ ከም ዘይደሊ ሓደ መረጋገፂ ክኾነና ይኽእል እናበለ እቲ ኩነታት ይገልጽ ኣሎ ብዝቕፅል እውን እቲ ዝግበር ዘሎ ኣካይዳ ነቶም ኣብዚ ተወሊዶም ዝዓበዩ ብኸመይ ክጸልዎም ይኽእል ንዝብል እውን ኣብኡ እውን ክረዳድኡ ይከኣሉን ስለምንታይ በታ ሓደ ወገን እቲ ፌስቲቫል ነቶም ንኣሽቱ ኣብ ዝዓዲ ዝተወለዱ ንኣብነት ኣብ ካናዳ ድዩ ኣብ ስዊድን ድዩ ኣብ ገለ ክትሪኦ ከለኻ ናይ ስፖርታዊ ንጥፈታት ኣሎ ውድድር ናይ ስፖርት ኣሎ ናይ ስነ ጥበብ ኣሎ ናይ ካልእ ኣሎ ብዙሕ ባህላዊ ነቶም ህፃናት ምስ ባህሎም ዘላልሎ በቲ ካልእ ወገን ድማ እቶም ካልኦት ወገን ክብሉ ከለዉ ድማ እቶም ንኣሽቱ ወለዶ እውን ኣገይን እናመፁ ኣንጻር እቲ ዝካየድ ዘሎ ኩነታት ብሓያል ወኒ ይቃለስኾም ዘለውን ዲሞክራሲን ፍትሕን ኣብ ዓዲ ንክሰፍን ድማ ብዙሕ ፀቕጢ ይገብርኹም ዘሎ ስለዚ እቲ ናይዞም ምሁራት ተሳትፎ እውን ኣብ ሓደ መዕለቢ ምሁራት እውን ካብ ኩሉ ወገን እውን ኣይኮኑን ዳንኤል ተቃዋማይ ኩላቶም ዳርጋ ተቃወምቲ እዮም ሓቂ ንምዝራብ ደገፍቲ ሪል ደገፍቲ እውን ኣይኮኑን ስለዚ እቲ ዘሎ ፍልሊ ወላ ኣብቶም ደረጃ ምሁራት እውን ክሳብ ክንደይ ኣብ ሓደ መዓዲ ክንበፅሕ ከም ዘይንኽእል እቲ ደንበ ተቃውሞ ዝበሃል ኣብ መንጎ ዘሎ ፍልሊ ኣዝያ ተሓሳሳቢ እዩ ኣዝያ ተሓሳሳቢ እዩ ኣብ ሓደ ጣውላ ኮፍ ኢልካ ወይ ካብ ሓደ ስነ ሓሳብ መፂኻ ንኣብነት ዳንኤል ተደጋጋሚ ኣብቲ ኢንተርቪው ከም ዝብሎ ቀዋማዊ ሕጊ ዲሞክራሲያዊ ሕጊ ሕግን ስርዓትን ዘለዎ ዓዲ ኣካይዳ ኣብ ኤርትራ ኩሉ ከም ዝደሊ ይነግር እዩ ኣብቲ ኣገባብ ግን ፍልይ ኣሎ እቶም ካልኦት ከዓ ንዑ ይኣምንዮም ግን ብዝኾነ ይኹን መንገዲ ነቲ ኣብ ኤርትራ ዘሎ ስርዓት ክህሉ ኣለዎ ዝብል ዓይነት ስታንድ ወይ ከዓ ርድኢት ዘለዎም ካይመስሉ ስለዚ እቲ ኣብ መንጎ ተቃውሞ ዘሎ ኣብ ደንቢ ተቃውሞ ዘሎ ፍልልይ ነቲ ሕብረተሰብና መሊፁ ናብ ምፍልላይ ገፁ ዝወስዶ ዘሎ ሓደ ዕዉት ስራሕ ንኸይህልዎ ዋላ እውን እንተኾነ ብዝኾነ ይኹን መንገዲ እቲ መንግስቲ ተተኣልዩ እውን እቲ ዘሎ ፍልልያት ኣብ ሓደ ጣውላ ኣብ ኣሜሪካ ኣብ ኤውሮፓ ኣብ ስልጡን ዓለም ከለካ ኮፍ ኢልካ ጣውላ ተረዳዲእካ ኣብ ሓደ ፅላል በፂሕካ ኣብ ሓደ ሓሳብ ክትሰምር ዘይምኻልካ እቲ እንኩ ሕጂ ዘስምሮ ዘሎ እቲ ብርጌድ ንሓመዱ ዝበሃል ዘሎ ኬትካ ነቲ ፌስቲቫል ጠጠው ከተብል ዝግበር ዘሎ መንገዲ ንሱ ጥራይ እዩ ሓደ ኣምፂዎ ዘሎ ክትብል ትኽእል ኢኻ ካብታ ባእስን ዕግርግርን ምስ ተመለስካ ግን ኣብቲ ብርጌድ ንሓመዱ ዝካየድ ዘሎ ዕግርግር ምናልባት ንክሽፍንዎ ፍልል የብሉን ገለመለ እንታይ እቲ ብርጌድ ንሓመዱ እንታይ እቲ ዕላሙ እንተኢልካ ለውጢ ከምፂ ብኸመይ መንገዲ እንታይ እቲ ርድኢት ናቱ ንኣብነት ዳንኤልሲ ናቶ ርድኢት ፍትሕን ኣነ ንባዕለይ ዳንኤል ገዲፍ ኣነ ዲሞክራሲን ፍትሕን ኣብ ዓድና ቀዋማዊ ሕጊ ክህልወና ይደልየ ነዚ ንዓይ ግን ከም ደጋፊ ተቆፅረኒ እንድሕር ኮንካ ወይ ዳንኤል ከም ደጋፊ ተቆፅረ ተኮንካ ኣገይን ነቲ ናተይ ሓሳብ ክትዓብጥ ነቲ ናተይ ድምፂ ክትዓብጥ ትፍትን እንድሕር ኮንካ እቲ ዲሞክራሲ ትብሎ ዘለካ እቲ ፍትሒ ትብሎ ዘለካ ብርግፅ ኣገባብ ይኮነ ካልኣይ ድማ ካብዚያ ብንጹር ክንዛረበላ ዘለና ንደገፍትኻ ከመይ ኢኻ ክትሪኦም ፅባሕ ንጎ ክትጭቁኖምን ክትቃትሎምን ከተጥፍኦምን ዲኻ ወይስ ንሓሳቦምን ንድሌቶምን ኣብ ጣውላ ከተምፅኦ ኢኻ እሱ እንድሕር ኮይኑ እቲ መርገፅናት ካብ መጀመርያ ንዑ ተቐበልቲ ኮንካ ሎሚ ዘይትጅምሮ ንዑ ዘይተቐበልቲ ኮንካ ብኸመይ መንገዲ ካስኻ ዲሞክራሲያዊ ሓይሊ ትበሃል ንፍትሕን ንናፃ ሓሳብ ምግላፅን ይድግፍ እየ ብኸመይ መንገዲ ክትብል ትኽእል ስለዚ ኣገይን እቲ ኣካይዳ ዘሎ ናይ ደንቢ ተቃውሞ ዋላ እኳ ንዲሞክራሲን ፍትሕን ዝብሉ እንትኾኑ እቲ ኣካይዳ ናቶምን እቲ መርገፂ ናቶምን እቲ ዝዛረብዎን እቲ ዝኸድዎን ዘለዉ ብትኽክል ድማ እቲ ኣብ ተግባር ዘርእይዎ ዘለዉ ንዲሞክራሲን ንፍትሕን ብትኽክል ከም ዘይከውን ወይ ከዓ ነታ ፍትሒ ትበሃል ጎስዮማ ረጊፆማ ክኸዱ ከም ዝደልዩ ኣገይን very intellectualist highly educated people እትርእይቶ ዝብዎ ዘሎ ብዛዕባ ፍትሕን ብዛዕባ ዲሞክራሲን ግን ዝሕዝን እዩ ንሓደ መሰል ዘለዎ ከማኻ መሰል ዘለዎ ብመሰሉ ተጠቂሙ ዝገብሮ ዘሎ ኣብ ትሕቲ ሕጊ ናይቲ ሃገር ንክገብሮ መሰል ንዘለዎ ክትዓብጥ ፍትሕን እንድሕር ኮንካ ብትኽክል ገለ ነገር ፀገም ኣሎ ንእሽተይ ኣብዚኣ ክንቅፅላ ኢና ናይ ካልኦት ምሁራት ድማ ፕሮፌሰር ዓወት ዝበሎ ድማ እስከንስማ
ፖለቲካውያን ባእታታት ኣብ ኩለን ሃገራት ኣሚኒሽን ረኺቦም ትሕዝቶ ረኺቦም ነቲ ናቶም ዓቀባውን ፀረ ስደተኛን ፀረ ፀሊምን ዝኾነ ፖለቲካ ንኸሰጉሙ እዚ ኮይኑ እቲ ሓፈሻዊ ገምጋም ናተይ ኣብ መንጎ ኤርትራውያን ዝመቃቐል ዘሎ እንታይ እዩ እዚኣቶም ኤርትራውያን ኣይኮኑን ዝብል ሕንቅልሕንቅሊተይ ኣሎ እዚኣቶም ኤርትራውያን እምበር ሕጂ ተጋሩዮም ገለ ዝበሃል ሕጂ ኣዚፍ ትግራዋይ መፀለሚ መንነት ተረኺቡለይሲ ተጋሩዮም ዝበሃል ነገር ኣሎ ኣነ ሕጂ ዝኾነ ሰብ ንኩሉ ኣብቲ ሰልፊ ዝተሳተፈ ኤርትራዊ ትግራዋይ ቸክ ዝገበረ ሰብ የለን ከም ኣርእስቲ ግን እዚ ናይ ኤርትራዊ ኣርእስቲ እዩ ኣብኡ ዘለው ንፈልጦም بمبزحتهم إرتراويان من يمزياتهم نزبل أب إرترا ناي محساب ناي متخخاب ناي بوليتيكا مزراب ناي دلايكا بوليتيكا مسقوام ناي مملاخ نتسألنا تنفيقوه مسرتاو ناي منبر مسل تنفيقوه كاب عدي هاتس إلو زتفاء إرتراويزي
نسو فتير وزلو ألوان ولا ميدياتاتنا أوروبا أمريكاون كي تحلفو يأكدو كمت كابتو جنزلو ويمو
كحلف أيدلن إزي تريو أب
بحفشة دياون بمولا أكره بايكالكم كن أنا كالا عينة مورون ريتون سمتن هنا سلازي بحفشة التكونتات كله كنردو كنمهارو كنفلطو أخول حبريتا كنوزولو كنكلالنا جن إذا كونتات زدما نزار زبلاس أنا هدما كلهم إرتراويان يمتقارين بروان زبل دما بزوون
كنرنا نايدا لا فتحي بتاع مزحزني قمت تفلطو نتقارو نخيمتنا نحنا إرتراويان تراينا إرتراويان زبلو سواتهم بزنا هنا زكايد زلو في الله يام نورز أمريكا زلو أدامو زينة سري مالت يابز قد دايزي هم تفلتوا عالسسي محزنتي بمحزنتي هاتكات
TDF مالت بنقيت حمد مالت TDF مالت بوتا تراعي تفعل الزلو معهم كنا نعملها واحدة نقفل أمنا
زي بين وفوز بحاليو TDF مالت أنه برجع نحمده مالت TDF مالت يلو إنه بسودي زوجل نت محبرة فلتني يجن أبكالا رستون كما تمثل الله بتدقى جامي إنه ريوجن again it's always the same.
عاد إيرتران أبتقرأ ينزل حبرة السب أنا قلت كحسر راح زل زلوا إيرتراونت جدول إيتو إيرتران على جدول توتو لعله هزب تقريني عن سرعي مخدمان إحنا أنا خو مسرعي كله سلزي حجز ما تزول حفشة
إحنا تجارو إينا نزخونا سكن حقوسنا من اثنين فيستيفال قرم أبزي إحنا حجي فيستيفال سقاب زجوبرو زي كنا خنص بيوم زلنا كمان فيستيفال قرم أبزي إحنا خنقتلنا خنص بدلنا أو سوسايت بومب غير نادينا غيرنا أبزي إحنا خنقتلنا خنص بدلنا كسابوغن
بتقين بتي كم ريو زلنا تكونتات very very interesting you إذا كنتم كتريوات خليهم بزعبات زلهلو كونتات حدث إلي باتكم الله بسترف دما I hope نزي حبريتا تماهيركم لغت كونوا لايك جبروا support جبروا نزي channel بزكالكم متن نابكالو تدليهم تحجزهم يعبز بالكم هذا سدد ونابلكو نايلو مهرس أبز خدي أنا كمريتون أتكم حسابات أب كمين section قدف نابلكو مزيات عم تدرفي كجت فكمي
برهاوي لبانا دوريكي مانا رحنا يوتن فاسا سعيرا عبسا أجوخي إريتراي سغفاي بالكي لنا مبزعاخ نحلو كم قدمنا أجوخي إريتراي